The crystalline caves of Proxima glowed with an eerie blue bioluminescence, casting strange shadows across Zixtal's translucent carapace as she maneuvered her sensor array through the narrow passage. Her antennae twitched with anticipation. After 3 months of excavation, they'd finally penetrated the sealed chamber her ground-penetrating radar had detected. Primary researcher Zixtal, her assistant Kretil, chittered through the comm system. The atmospheric readings are stable. You may proceed with the final barrier removal. She extended her manipulator arms, carefully operating the plasma cutter around the edges of what appeared to be an artificially constructed wall. The crystalline material fell away in precise segments, revealing a perfectly smooth chamber beyond. The sight made her primary heart skip a beat. Natural caves didn't form with such geometric precision. The chamber was small, perhaps 5 meters on each side, but what caught her attention was the pedestal in its center. On it sat a device, unlike anything she'd encountered in her 3 centuries of synorchiology. It was a perfect cube, roughly 10 centimeters on each side, with a surface that seemed to shift between solid and transparent, depending on the angle of observation. "Kretil, are you seeing this?" She adjusted her visual feed to capture every detail. The construction suggests technological sophistication far beyond anything we've seen from this era. The quantum stabilization patterns alone. Her voice trailed off as her instruments began collecting data. According to her preliminary scans, the device was maintaining a stable quantum field despite having no apparent power source. That was impossible. Even the most advanced Galactic Council races couldn't maintain quantum coherence without massive power expenditure. Primary researcher, Kretil's voice carried an unusual tremor. "The dating results are coming through. I suggest you verify these numbers yourself." Zixtal shifted her attention to the chronometric data and felt her secondary heart join her primary in a rhythmic shock. She ran the analysis 3 more times, each scan confirming what couldn't possibly be true. The device was over 50,000 years old. "There must be some contamination," she muttered, more to herself than to Kretil. No species had achieved even basic spaceflight at that time, let alone quantum engineering of this sophistication. She carefully lifted the cube with her containment field. Despite its apparent age, the surface showed no signs of degradation. If anything, it looked as though it had been placed there yesterday. A sudden pulse of energy from the device caused her instruments to spike. The cube began emitting a low-frequency hum that made her carapace vibrate uncomfortably. Lines of light traced across its surface in patterns that teased at meaning, like a language just beyond comprehension. "Kretil, begin emergency containment procedures. Something's happening." The cube pulsed again, stronger this time, and projected a holographic display that filled the chamber. Star charts materialized around her, showing stellar configurations she didn't recognize. But what caused her manipulator arms to tremble was the text scrolling alongside the stars. She recognized the format. It was navigation data. But the stellar drift calculations suggested these charts were recorded at their point of origin over 50,000 years ago. The implications were staggering. Someone had not only achieved spaceflight, but had mapped significant portions of the galaxy at a time when most current Council species were still developing basic tool use. Primary researcher, Kretil's voice had taken on an urgent tone. "We're detecting similar energy signatures from multiple sites across the planet. Whatever you activated, it's not alone." Zixtal carefully secured the cube in a quantum-shielded container, her mind's racing with possibilities. The Council would want to suppress this discovery. It challenged too many fundamental assumptions about galactic history. But as she made her way back through the crystal caves, she couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled onto something far bigger than a simple archaeological find. This wasn't just a discovery. It was the beginning of a revelation that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Grand Council chamber on Neo Geneva hadn't seen such chaos since the Centaurian succession crisis. Representatives from 17 species shouted over each other in their native tongues, while translation matrices struggled to keep up. At the center of the storm stood Ambassador Chen Wei, the human delegate, maintaining a calm that made Zixtal's antennae twitch with suspicion. Order. Supreme Counselor Vexmar's gravitational voice dampened the cacophony. We will maintain diplomatic protocol, even in the face of unusual circumstances. Unusual was an understatement. What had begun as a formal dinner to celebrate archaeological cooperation between species had descended into pandemonium when Ambassador Chen's daughter, Min, had wandered too close to the quantum artifacts on display. Zixtal replayed the scene in her mind. The 7-year-old human child reaching out with curiosity, her small fingers barely brushing the cube's surface. The artifact had responded instantly, bathing the grand hall in a holographic display far more detailed than anything they'd seen in the caves. Star charts, technical specifications, and strings of data in an unknown language had filled the air like a constellation come to life. But it was what happened next that had thrown the council into chaos. The unknown language had begun to shift, transforming before their eyes into recognizable human characters. Ancient Mandarin, Sanskrit, and Proto-Indo-European texts appeared simultaneously, as if the device had been waiting millennia for human contact. The implications are clear, growled Krolak, the Arcturus representative. The humans have deceived us. They planted these devices. Ambassador Chen's smile didn't waver. With respect, representative, how could we have planted artifacts that your own scientists have confirmed are over 50,000 years old? Humanity achieved faster-than-light travel barely 3 centuries ago. Then explain why they respond to human touch. Krolak's scales flushed orange with agitation. Why they display human languages? Zixtal stepped forward, her carapace gleaming under the chamber's lights. If I may, Supreme Counselor. At Vexmar's acknowledgement, she activated her data projection. Our analysis shows something even more disturbing. The star charts displayed by the artifact. They show stellar positions from 50,000 years ago, but the navigation markers correlate perfectly with ancient human constellations. Constellations documented in humanity's earliest writings. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Chen's smile finally faltered. Furthermore, Zixtal continued, her scientific training warring with her instinct to suppress this information, we've discovered similar artifacts responding to human presence across 12 star systems. Each one contains navigational data that matches human astronomical records from before they supposedly achieved spaceflight. Young Min, still standing near the artifact, suddenly spoke up. The stars are singing Bay. Can't you hear them? Her small face was transfixed by something only she could perceive. The cube pulsed again, responding to her words. New data streams filled the air, but this time they showed something that made even Zixtal's logical mind reel. Technical schematics for engines, weapons, and technologies far beyond current Galactic Council capabilities. And in the corner of each schematic was a symbol that appeared in humanity's oldest archaeological records, a symbol they dismissed as a simple decoration. This meeting is now classified at the highest level, Vexmar announced, their gravitational field intensifying with stress. No one leaves until we understand what we're dealing with. But Zixtal had already begun to understand. She watched as Min reached for the cube again, her small human hands moving with a certainty that seemed beyond her years. The child's eyes reflected the holographic data with an comprehension that shouldn't have been possible. The question isn't who planted these artifacts. Zixtal said quietly, her scientific mind assembling the impossible puzzle. The question is why humanity lost their knowledge of them, and why that knowledge seems to be returning now. In the center of the chamber, Min began humming a tune that made the artifacts displays pulse in rhythm, as if ancient machine and human child were sharing a song remembered across 50,000 years of silence. The revelation was coming, whether the galaxy was ready or not. The air beneath the Great Pyramid felt different than Zixtal remembered from her previous excavations on Earth. The new chamber they'd discovered lay far deeper than any previously known structure, and her instruments detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist in a 6,000-year-old monument. Primary researcher, Kretil's voice echoed through the narrow passage. The human authorities are requesting an update on our findings. Tell them what they already know, Zixtal replied, adjusting her atmospheric filters. We found another chamber. Leave out the part about the quantum signatures matching the artifacts from Proxima. The passage opened into a vast underground complex that defied all historical records. Smooth, metallic walls stretched into darkness, covered in displays that still flickered with power after 50 millennia. But it was what lay in the center of the chamber that had caused 3 of her research assistants to request immediate transfer. Rows of preservation pods lined the walls, each containing a perfectly preserved human body. They weren't mummies. These were anatomically modern humans, their bodies integrated with neural interfaces far more sophisticated than anything currently in use. Each pod bore that same symbol they'd seen in the quantum artifacts. Ambassador Chen stood before one of the pods, his usual diplomatic composure shattered. How is this possible? These are my ancestors, but they're more advanced than we are. Zixtal moved to a central console that had activated at their presence. The data we're decoding suggests these weren't your ancestors, Ambassador. These were your contemporaries. At least, they would have been, before something called the Great Sleep Protocol. The console projected a holographic record. A woman appeared, wearing clothing that seemed both ancient and futuristic. Her neural interfaces pulsed with life despite the recording's age. To those who find this record, the woman spoke in perfect modern English, though the timestamp marked it as 50,000 years old. We leave our warning and our legacy. The choice we made was not made lightly. Our civilization spanned thousands of worlds. We had mastered energy, matter, and the spaces between dimensions. But we discovered something approaching, something that hunts civilizations that reach too far, too fast. Ambassador Chen's daughter Min, who had insisted on accompanying them after the incident in the council chamber, stepped forward. Her eyes reflected the same strange awareness they'd witnessed before. They chose to sleep, she said, her voice carrying an understanding far beyond her years. They chose to forget. The hologram continued. We could have fled to another galaxy. Instead, we chose to stay and fight, but on our terms. The Great Sleep Protocol will literally devolve our species, locking our knowledge and technology in dormant DNA sequences. We will begin again as primitive beings, evolving alongside the threat, learning to counter it in ways it cannot predict. Zixtal's instruments detected quantum fluctuations throughout the chamber as more systems activated, responding to the presence of the humans. Data streamed across every surface: star charts, weapon schematics, neural interface designs, and genetic sequences that made her scientific mind reel with their complexity. According to these records, Kretil reported, his appendages flying over the controls, Similar facilities exist beneath humanity's oldest cities: Beijing, Mohenjo-daro, Göbekli Tepe. They're all activating simultaneously. Min walked to one of the preservation pods, placing her small hand against its surface. The neural interfaces on the preserved human inside pulsed in response, creating a resonance pattern that spread throughout the chamber. "They're not dead," she said simply. "They're waiting, like seeds in winter." Ambassador Chen grabbed his daughter's hand, but not before the resonance triggered something in the facility's systems. Screens lit up with a countdown sequence that made Zixtal's heart stutter. "The Great Sleep Protocol," she read, her translator struggling with the ancient text, "is entering its final phase. Genetic reactivation sequence initiated." In that moment, standing in humanity's true legacy, Zixtal realized that everything she thought she knew about galactic history had been wrong. They hadn't discovered humanity's past. They'd witnessed the beginning of its reawakening. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, something ancient stirred in response. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber felt smaller with each passing hour as Zixtal presented her findings. The quantum displays showed genetic sequences so complex they required six-dimensional modeling to fully represent. Every new revelation about the Great Sleep Protocol left the assembled representatives more shaken than the last. The modification of their own genetic code was merely the beginning, Zixtal explained, her carapace vibrating with barely contained excitement. They didn't just evolve their technology, they rewrote their entire species' destiny. The holographic display showed the progression. Modern humans transforming generation by generation, their neural interfaces becoming dormant genes, their quantum-enhanced minds slowly falling silent. But within that regression lay something beautiful and terrible, a plan 50,000 years in the making. "Each junk DNA sequence we've identified contains compressed data," she continued. "Their entire civilization, technology, history, knowledge, encoded into genetic molecules. But the genius lies in how they designed it to reactivate." Ambassador Chen stood at the center of the chamber, his daughter Min asleep in his arms. Medical monitors showed her brainwave patterns had changed since their discovery in the pyramid. She wasn't alone. Similar changes were being reported in human children worldwide. The cosmic wave they detected, Zixtal projected a simulation of the galaxy from 50 millennia ago, wasn't just a destructive force. It was intelligent. It hunted civilizations that achieved certain technological thresholds, like antibodies attacking an infection in the galactic body. Supreme Counselor Vexmar's gravitational field rippled with concern. And humanity chose to, what? Hide by becoming primitive. "No," Chen spoke softly, looking down at his sleeping daughter. "My ancestors chose to evolve alongside the threat, to become something it couldn't recognize." Zixtal activated the final simulation. The Great Sleep Protocol was designed in stages. Each generation of humans would unconsciously adapt to the cosmic wave's presence, developing in ways that existed in its blind spots. Their technology, their thought patterns, even their basic understanding of physics, all evolved to become invisible to the threat. The chamber erupted in shock as she displayed the next data set. Human genetic samples from the past century showed accelerating changes, dormant sequences awakening with each generation. Their neural architecture was reorganizing itself in patterns that defied conventional biology. "We thought humanity achieved faster-than-light travel quickly because they were brilliant innovators." Zixtal's voice carried a note of awe. "The truth is, they were remembering. Each technological breakthrough wasn't invention, it was recovery. But the recovered technology came with 50,000 years of unconscious adaptation against the threat. Min stirred in her father's arms, her eyes opening to reveal pupils that seemed to reflect quantum states. "The stars are getting louder," she whispered. "They're trying to warn us." Sensor alarms blared across the chamber. Cortil rushed in, his appendages trembling. "Primary researcher, we're detecting quantum disturbances throughout human space. The preservation facilities, they're all activating." The assembled representatives watched in horror and wonder as the data poured in. Across Earth and every human colony, children were displaying abilities that bordered on the impossible. Adults reported dreams of advanced mathematics and engineering principles they couldn't possibly know. "The price of survival," Chen said, holding his transforming daughter close, "was to forget everything we were, to sleep through eons as primitive beings, letting our unconscious minds adapt and evolve, to become something new." Zixtal's instruments detected another quantum surge from Min. The child raised her hand, and for a moment, everyone in the chamber saw what she saw: the approaching wave of destruction that humanity had hidden from 50,000 years ago. But they also saw what the threat couldn't: the subtle, beautiful adaptations humanity had evolved during their long sleep. They had paid for their survival with 50,000 years of forgetting. But in that forgetting, they had become something the cosmic horror had never encountered before, a species that had evolved specifically to survive it. The question was, would they remember everything they needed in time? The Stockholm Quantum Research Facility had never seen anything like young Min Chen's test results. Zixtal watched through an observation window as the 9-year-old manipulated quantum states with her bare hands, achieving in seconds what took the most advanced computers hours to calculate. "The changes are accelerating," Dr. Sarah Henderson, the facility's lead researcher, explained while displaying the latest neural scans. "She's not just accessing ancestral memories. Her brain is physically reorganizing itself to accommodate quantum computation." Min wasn't alone. Across Earth and its colonies, an entire generation was transforming. Children solved complex mathematical theorems in their sleep. Teenagers designed impossible engines in their garage workshops. University students were rewriting physics textbooks faster than they could be printed. "Ambassador," Zixtal turned to Chen, who hadn't left his daughter's side in weeks. "The Council needs to understand what we're dealing with. The rate of advancement." A sudden burst of light from the testing chamber interrupted her. Min had created a stable quantum entanglement field with nothing but her transformed neural interface. The monitoring equipment overloaded, unable to process what they were witnessing. "Daddy," Min called out, her voice carrying an ancient wisdom. "I remember how to fold space now. The others are remembering too." Reports flooded in from around the globe. In New Delhi, a group of children had spontaneously constructed a working anti-gravity device from spare parts. In Lagos, teenage programmers had developed an AI that operated on quantum principles that professors couldn't comprehend. A high school science fair in Buenos Aires had produced 3 different working designs for faster-than-light communication. "It's not just the children," Dr. Henderson noted, pulling up global data. "Adults are experiencing accelerated awakening through their dreams. We have grandmothers suddenly understanding 11-dimensional mathematics. Factory workers instinctively upgrading their machinery with technology that shouldn't exist yet." Chen watched as his daughter manipulated quantum fields like they were clay. "How much time do we have before we remember everything?" Zixtal's instruments captured another surge in Min's neural activity. At the current rate of acceleration, weeks, maybe days, the Great Sleep Protocol isn't just ending, it's collapsing. 50,000 years of compressed evolution is unfolding in real time. The facility's quantum sensors suddenly screamed in alarm. Min had stopped playing with the quantum fields and stood perfectly still, her eyes reflecting calculations beyond normal space-time. "The others are calling," she said, her voice resonating at frequencies that made Zixtal's carapace vibrate. "All the sleeping ones. We need to wake them up now." Before anyone could respond, every quantum-capable device in the facility activated simultaneously. Through their screens, they saw it happening everywhere. Humanity's dormant neural networks were lighting up like stars coming alive at dusk. The preservation pods, Zixtal realized with sudden clarity, they weren't just keeping the bodies in stasis. They were waiting for humanity to evolve enough to handle reawakening. Min pressed her hand against the observation window, leaving traces of quantum energy in her wake. "We had to change enough that we could understand them, but stay human enough to teach the others." She looked at her father with eyes that held millennia of knowledge. "That's why they chose children to wake up first. We can still learn without breaking." The facility's systems could barely keep up with the cascade of awakenings. Humanity wasn't just remembering. They were becoming something new, something that had evolved alongside the very force that had driven them into hiding. Dr. Henderson's monitors tracked the exponential growth of human capabilities. At this rate, they'll surpass their ancient technology within months. But it won't be the same technology. It'll be better. Min finished, as quantum light danced around her fingers. "We didn't just sleep. We dreamed. We evolved. And now we're ready." Zixtal watched as humanity's children led their species into an awakening 50,000 years in the making. They weren't just recovering their past. They were transforming into something the galaxy had never seen before. The question was, would the rest of the galaxy survive humanity's metamorphosis? The emergency evacuation of Neo Geneva began at dawn. Zixtal watched from the Council's orbital platform as ships from a dozen species fled Earth's solar system. Their exodus cast moving shadows across the planet's surface, where humanity's transformation had reached a critical point. "The militant faction has mobilized their fleets," Curtil reported, his appendages trembling as he processed the tactical data. "The Arcturus Defense Force is already moving to contain the human colonies in the Centaurus system." Supreme Counselor Vexmar's gravitational field pulsed with barely contained stress. "Have they gone mad? We can't contain what we don't understand." On the main display, surveillance footage showed the latest developments from Earth. Stockholm had become a nexus of impossible architecture, buildings that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The children, led by Min Chen, had transformed the quantum research facility into something that defied conventional physics. "The Progressive Alliance stands with humanity," Ambassador Lyra of the Proximum Collective announced, her bioluminescence flaring with conviction. "We've all seen the data. They chose to devolve rather than abandon this galaxy to the coming threat. That alone proves their wisdom." The chamber's quantum sensors suddenly spiked. Min Chen appeared as a hologram in the center of the room, her presence somehow both there and in Stockholm simultaneously. "The Arcturus fleet has opened fire on New Berlin Colony," she reported, her young voice carrying harmonics that made the station's structure resonate. "They don't understand. We're not their enemy." Ambassador Chen stepped forward, his neural interfaces now fully visible beneath his skin. "The militant faction fears what they can't control. But attempting to destroy us now would be like trying to stop a supernova by shouting at it." Reports flooded in from across human space. The colony on New Berlin had simply shifted, the attacking ships firing through empty space where it had been moments before. On Mars, The ancient preservation facilities had fully activated, releasing technologies that transformed the planet's surface in hours. "We're receiving a transmission from the Arcturus flagship," Cretil announced. Prolak's scaled face appeared on the main screen, orange with rage. "The human threat must be contained. Their power grows by the hour. Soon they'll—" His transmission cut off as every quantum-capable device in the chamber activated simultaneously. Min's hologram expanded, showing them what she saw, the approaching cosmic wave, now clearly visible to humanity's evolved senses. It was vast, intelligent, and hungry. "This is why we slept," Min explained, manipulating the holographic display with thoughts alone. "We needed to become something new, something that could face this threat without being detected and destroyed. But we need time to finish awakening." Vexmar's gravitational field stabilized with sudden determination. "The Progressive Alliance will buy you that time. Lyra, coordinate with the Proximum fleet. We'll stand between the militant faction and Earth." Ambassador Chen's neural interfaces pulsed as he received data from the surface. "The preservation pods are almost ready. Our ancestors, our teachers, they'll wake up to a species ready to understand them." Zixtal's instruments captured another quantum surge from Earth. The transformation was accelerating beyond their ability to measure. Humanity wasn't just remembering their past. They were becoming something that transcended it. "You don't need to protect us," Min's hologram said softly. "Just help us protect you." As if to emphasize her words, the Arcturus attack fleet suddenly found itself transported to the opposite side of human space, their weapon systems gently but thoroughly disabled by technologies they couldn't comprehend. The galaxy watched as humanity continued their metamorphosis, dividing itself between those who feared the change and those who understood its necessity. But in Stockholm, surrounded by architecture that danced between dimensions, Min Chen and a generation of transformed children prepared to welcome back their sleeping ancestors. They had evolved into something new, but they were still human enough to want to save everyone, even those who feared them. The question was, would the galaxy let them? The Martian preservation facility had transformed into something beyond architecture. Quantum crystalline structures pulsed with multidimensional energy as Zixtal followed Min Chen through corridors that seemed to fold through impossible spaces. "This is where they left the final warning," Min said, her neural interfaces glowing with patterns that matched the facility's resonance. "The real reason they chose to sleep." Behind them, Ambassador Chen and Supreme Counselor Vexmar struggled to process what their senses reported. The walls shifted between states of matter, and gravity seemed more like a suggestion than a law. "The cosmic wave isn't natural," Min continued, leading them into a chamber that existed simultaneously in multiple probability states. "They're coming. The ones who hunt between dimensions. The Void Architects." The chamber stabilized, and a holographic representation filled the space. Zixtal's scientific mind reeled at what she saw. Entities that existed as mathematical functions, beings that wrote and rewrote the laws of physics as easily as breathing. "They seed galaxies with life," Min explained, her voice carrying echoes of ancient knowledge. "They wait for civilizations to reach a certain technological threshold, then harvest them. Each harvested species adds to their computational capacity." Ambassador Chen's neural interfaces pulsed as he accessed newly awakened memories. "We discovered them 50,000 years ago. We could have run, hidden in another galaxy. Instead, humanity chose to evolve in their blind spots." Zixtal finished, finally understanding. The Great Sleep wasn't just about hiding. It was about becoming something the Void architects couldn't predict or comprehend. The facility's quantum matrix surged as Min accessed deeper levels of the archive. New holograms showed humanity's original civilization discovering the threat, analyzing it, and making their impossible choice. They hunt species that develop along predictable technological paths. Min said, manipulating the quantum data streams with practiced ease. So we chose to develop unpredictably. We deleted our civilization and rewrote our evolution. We became quantum organic hybrids that could perceive and manipulate dimensional barriers. Vexmar's gravitational field fluctuated with understanding. The children changed first because their neural patterns weren't fully formed. They could adapt without breaking. Suddenly, every quantum sensor in the facility screamed in alarm. Min's eyes widened as she accessed the facility's full sensor array. They're here. The Void architects have breached the dimensional barrier in the Carina Nebula. The holographic display shifted to show it. Vast mathematical entities unfolding into normal space, their very presence warping reality around them. The militant faction's fleet, still attempting to contain human colonies in that sector, never stood a chance. "We need more time," Chen said, watching as the Arcturus ships vanished into mathematical impossibilities. "The preservation pods haven't finished cycling. Our ancestors haven't fully awakened." Min stepped into the center of the chamber, her quantum interfaces synchronizing with the facility's systems. "Time," she said thoughtfully, "isn't what they think it is." The chamber's walls began to pulse with new patterns. Across human space, children like Min accessed their evolved abilities simultaneously. They weren't just remembering humanity's past technology, they were improvising with 50,000 years of adapted neural architecture. The Void architects hunt four-dimensional species. Min explained as reality rippled around her. "We spent 50,000 years becoming something else. Something that could exist in the spaces between their equations." Zixtal's instruments captured the impossible. Humanity's children, working in concert across space and probability, were rewriting the local laws of physics. They weren't just fighting back, they were changing the rules of reality itself. "Now we know why humanity chose to sleep," Zixtal said softly, watching as Min coordinated with thousands of other evolved children. They needed to become the impossible to fight the inevitable. The Void architects approached Earth, ready to harvest another predictable civilization. Instead, they found something they had never encountered in eons of hunting, a species that had evolved specifically to be their nightmare. The true war was about to begin. The battle for Earth began not with weapons, but with mathematics. Min Chen stood in the quantum heart of the Stockholm facility, her consciousness linked with thousands of other evolved children across human space. Through their shared awareness, she felt the Void architects approaching, vast entities of pure computation, hungry for another predictable harvest. They're scanning our civilization, Min broadcast to the Galactic Council representatives, looking for the patterns they recognize, the technologies they expect. Instead, they found humanity's children, their evolved neural architectures rewriting probability itself. The Void architects' first attack, a cascade of altered physics meant to collapse human technology, passed through Earth harmlessly. Humanity was no longer bound by the physical laws they sought to change. "The preservation pods are opening," Ambassador Chen reported, his neural interfaces pulsing with data. "Our ancestors are awakening." Across Earth and its colonies, the pods that had waited 50,000 years broke their quantum seals. But what emerged wasn't the humanity that had gone to sleep. The sleepers had dreamed for millennia, their minds evolving alongside their descendants, becoming something that transcended their original forms. Min felt them join the neural network, their ancient wisdom merging with the children's evolved capabilities. They brought not just knowledge, but understanding, not just power, but purpose. Now, Min whispered, her voice carrying through quantum entanglement to every human mind. Show them what we became. The response was beyond spectacular. Humanity's children, guided by their awakened ancestors, reached into the spaces between dimensions. They didn't fight the void architects with weapons or shields. They fought them with impossibility itself. Stickstall watched in awe as reality rippled around Earth. The void architects' mathematical attacks were met with equations that shouldn't exist, their computational prowess challenged by minds that operated beyond traditional physics. They're trying to rewrite our fundamental constants, one of the awakened ancestors announced through the quantum network. Show them what 50,000 years of adaptive evolution looks like. Human consciousness expanded across space-time, not fighting the void architects directly, but changing the nature of reality around them. Where the ancient harvesters expected resistance, they found emptiness. Where they sought weakness, they found paradox. We didn't just hide from them. Min explained to the watching galaxy as the battle raged across dimensions. We became their antithesis. Every civilization they harvested made them stronger, more predictable. But we evolved to be unpredictable, to exist in the blind spots of their perfect mathematics. The void architects, for the first time in their eons-long existence, faced something they couldn't simply compute away. Humanity had become a living paradox, a species that could think in quantum superpositions and dream in dimensional mathematics. Supreme Counselor Vexmar watched as the battle reached its crescendo. They're retreating, they announced in disbelief. The harvesters are actually retreating. But Min and the other children weren't finished. As the void architects withdrew, humanity reached out not with weapons, but with understanding. They shared their evolved perception, showing the galaxy how to see beyond traditional dimensions, how to exist in the spaces between computation. We didn't wake up to be conquerors, Min said, her voice carrying the wisdom of both future and past. We woke up to be teachers. The preservation pods had released not just humanity's past, but its purpose. They became guardians not through force, but through transformation, teaching younger species how to evolve beyond the void architect's reach. Ambassador Chen stood with his daughter as the quantum storm subsided. Earth's skies shimmered with new colors as humanity's changed perception became the norm. We slept for 50,000 years, he said, to wake up at exactly the right moment. Min smiled, her evolved consciousness touching minds across the galaxy. No, she corrected gently. We slept for 50,000 years, so we could help everyone else wake up too. And in the spaces between dimensions, where the void architects had once hunted with impunity, a new kind of civilization began to emerge, one that didn't follow their predictable paths of evolution, but danced between the equations themselves. Humanity had become not just survivors, but architects of a new way of existing. They were no longer the hunted, they were the impossible dream that nightmares feared. The galaxy would never sleep easily again, and that was exactly how it should be.